Alex Kennedy, hoopshype.com. He joins us on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. We talk to him each week at this time as we get into the NBA Finals now, Alex. We knew virtually since the season started that this was going to be the Finals, but that game last night, it really, displayed, I think, again, how wide the gap is from LeBron James and whoever is going to be the team that takes them on in the East. There are just not enough stars in the Eastern Conference to challenge the Cavs, and we don't know how long that's going to be for. How many more years is this going to be like this?
Boston didn't go out and, trade away their draft pick that they were owed from the Nets because they want to make sure that they can build for the future, because I think everyone kind of realizes that this LeBron team isn't going anywhere. LeBron's having one of the best years of his career, if not the best, which is pretty remarkable considering his age and all the wear and tear on his body. He's been so efficient, shooting the ball so well. He's so well-rounded now. He can score at the basket. He can knock down threes. Obviously, he's always been a very good passer and rebounder, defender. It's just amazing what he's doing right now. And then the supporting cast around him is great, too. I give David Griffin a ton of credit for the job he's done there. Obviously, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, they're the guys that get talked about the most. But and there's been some guys that have come and signed just because they wanted to play with a contender. But David Griffin did a great job of, fixing their weaknesses and trading for guys that would help that supporting cast. He traded for Channing Frye, J.R. Smith, Iman Shumpert, Kyle Korver, last year Timothy Mozgov. He's made a lot of moves to make sure this team is good enough to be able to compete for championships. And there is a huge gap between Cleveland and everyone else. If I was a team in the Eastern Conference, I'd be looking to build, 4 or 5 years from now when LeBron is potentially declining, whenever this team may be on the way down. So if you're a team like Philly, for example, or Milwaukee, or even a team like Boston that now has, the number 1 overall pick, some young talent on that team, and a pick next year from Brooklyn, you may want to look at, building for the future rather than going all in on right now, because even if you can beat Cleveland, there's no guarantee you could beat the Warriors in the finals either, because this team's not going anywhere either.
Yeah, it's a big problem in this league, isn't it, Alex? That you got two teams on top that are really 3 or 4 years at least in terms of their staying power.
Yeah, it's a big problem. There's really no parity. You look at the NFL, and I think the thing that's so interesting about the NFL is every season fans come into the year thinking, okay, we have a shot. We can make the playoffs. We can go deep. It's single elimination. So if you get hot at the right time, or there's an injury or whatever, then you can be a wild card team that wins the Super Bowl. But because it's a 7-game series and because there's so many stars on these top teams, it's really hard for the NBA to have a real surprising run like that. So that's why I think all year long everyone thought, okay, it's going to be Cleveland and Golden State, and sure enough, here we are. I do think the league is trying to do certain things to prevent more super teams from being formed. We kind of saw that with the designated player extension, where teams can give much more money, significantly more money, to their star players if they're named to the All-NBA team, or they win MVP, or they're an all-star starter, or defensive player of the year. They're trying to keep stars with the original team that drafted them. That's the goal, because they want to have stars scattered around the league. It makes for a really fun finals matchup when you have, 2 dominant teams, but it makes for the rest of the postseason and the regular season pretty anticlimactic. Golden State just is maybe the best team I've ever seen on paper, and Cleveland is just so talented too. So unless you have another team that's able to kind of put a super team together, there's been rumors about the Spurs lately trying to go after Chris Paul potentially, and maybe go after some veterans as well, making a trade or two. So you could have a Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard, LaMarcus Aldridge team. But even still, there's no guarantee that could beat Golden State. So it's tough whenever you have so many stars on 1 or 2 teams. And the league's trying to address it, but it's funny because the league kind of got themselves in this mess in the first place. They really embraced free agency and player movement. They loved the fact that every July 1st fans were engaged, and it was such a big thing. People wanted to know where the stars were going to go. In the NFL, you don't really see free agents move teams very often. You don't see star players, just decide to go sign elsewhere. In the NBA, that's happened quite a lot, very often. So initially, it brought a lot of interest to the NBA and a lot of storylines. But now with guys teaming up, it's become more of a problem than a pro for the NBA.
Well, I know one guy who doesn't want to be blamed for it, and that's Kevin Durant. He said, like, I'm the reason why bleeping Orlando can't make the playoffs for 5-6 years in a row. Am I the reason that Brooklyn gave all their picks to Boston? Like, am I the reason they're not that good? I can't play for every team. So the truth of the matter is I left one team. It's one more team that you probably would have thought would have been a contender. One more team. I couldn't have made the entire East better. I couldn't have made everybody else in the West better. So he seems, to be finally kind of cracking on the feeling that, hey, Kevin Durant, your move kind of ruined the league.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's frustration from Kevin Durant for sure because he gets blamed for a lot of things, and it is unfair. He did leave Oklahoma City, and obviously that turned them from a legitimate contender that, could have won a championship potentially to being a team that, is just reliant on Russell Westbrook only now. So he certainly affected that team, but blaming everything and all the league's problems and on Durant is unfair. But, there are also fans who, I understand where fans are coming from too, because they think that, the finals matchup and champion is basically inevitable now because of Durant, because he joined such a talented team. But I never fault a player when they go, join another team in free agency. I'm one of those guys that feel like when you're drafted, you have no choice. You're going to a team that picked you. You're going to a city that you didn't select. And, Kevin Durant spent a huge bulk of his career in Oklahoma City. LeBron James, before he left for Miami, spent a ton of time in Cleveland before moving on. These guys gave their teams a chance. They let them try to build around them. They tried to win championships, and it didn't work out. So when a guy decides to leave a city that he never really committed to, that he wasn't ever really involved in the decision to go there, it was just something that was kind of put on him, then I never fault the guy for leaving, and he wanted to win championships. I think now especially, we always talk about the argument, with rings. It always comes down to who has more rings, who has been to the finals. Those are the kind of things that we look at when we talk about a player's legacy. So a guy like LeBron, a guy like Kevin Durant, these guys want championships. And right now in the NBA, I think they realize you have to have multiple star players on your team in order to do that.
Alex, Draymond Green, meanwhile, said the Warriors and the Cavs romping through the playoffs was a great thing for the NBA. Do you agree with Draymond Green?
I think it's a great thing in the NBA Finals because it makes for a rematch that's going to be a whole lot of fun. I think when you have, two teams that have bad blood and two teams that are this talented, it's going to make for an incredible series. Hopefully it goes 7 games again. If you remember last year, that 7-game series was just so intense. There were so many up and downs. I was watching the last few minutes of Game 7 of last year's finals yesterday, and it was just crazy. The Kyrie Irving shot, the block, all the different plays that happened. The final series almost makes it worth it. But, I don't think it's a good thing for the rest of the postseason because it makes the other rounds anticlimactic. You can look through all the different, postseason series, and yeah, there were a few good series here and there. There were certainly some good games, but I think all along, I would talk to fans and even fans of Boston or San Antonio, the next best teams in the NBA, and they would say, yeah, we're playing pretty well, but it doesn't really matter because it's going to be Cleveland Golden State. So I think because everyone's kind of resigned to the fact that these two teams would match up, it kind of took away some of the appeal, some of the draw for fans, especially casual fans who are just waiting for the finals. So I think Draymond's wrong in that sense, but in terms of it being good for the NBA to have two dominant teams, two teams that are kind of pursuing a dynasty and have bad blood, and a lot of really fun individual matchups with Steph Curry and Kyrie Irving, LeBron James and Kevin Durant, Draymond Green and Kevin Love. You look at all those matchups, it's going to be a lot of fun. So I think it makes for a great final series. Hopefully the finals are good enough to kind of redeem what was a pretty weak postseason otherwise.
Talk with Alex Kennedy, hoopshype.com here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. So Durant in the finals. This is his second time there. He did lose with Oklahoma City to LeBron, so this is the second time these two guys will meet. And obviously, Golden State has already won a championship without Durant. Now they bring Durant to the mix. So is there some pressure in your mind on this Golden State team that maybe LeBron and this Cavs team, as the defending champions, are kind of relishing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that people are looking at Golden State as a favorite because, you go from, even though they're not the defending champs, they were so talented last year. Now they're completely healthy. You add a former MVP in Kevin Durant. A lot of people are expecting the Warriors to win this thing. So usually if you're a team like the Cavs that has multiple All-Stars and, you have the defending champion, label, you're the favorite. But they're going to this as underdogs. They have an us against the world mentality, and that's always a good thing in the NBA Finals. I've always kind of tried to look in the locker room and talk to guys and see kind of the vibe of a team as they're approaching the finals. And the teams that usually do well are the ones that feel like they don't have a lot of pressure on them. And I think right now the pressure is on Golden State. And I think it's on Kevin Durant as well. If you join a team that won 73 games, even though they didn't win the finals last year, like you said, they've won a championship. They've had a lot of success. If they don't do well or Kevin Durant has a really bad series, then suddenly you're going to see a lot of blame pointed toward Kevin Durant. And I think especially because they played so well at the end of the season when Durant was injured. This team looked completely different. Steph Curry was dominating again. Klay Thompson played well. Draymond Green was posting crazy numbers. Even David West was coming in and putting up great numbers. So I think if they do poorly, then you're going to say, there's going to be a lot of pundits, fair or not. I think it's a stupid argument, but there's going to be a lot of pundits saying, oh, maybe they should have stuck with their current roster. They screwed up their chemistry. Kevin Durant didn't do a good job. He hurt the team. That's a ridiculous argument. If you can get Kevin Durant on your team, you're going to take it. But at the end of the day, it is pressure on Durant, and there is pressure on the Warriors. So I think that does have to be factored in as you kind of weigh this series.
Alex, superstars get motivation from different places. You wonder where their motivation comes from. At times it can come from various sources, but you look at a series here, too, where LeBron James spurned for MVP. In fact, neither of the two teams have an MVP finalist in the finals.
Yeah, I think that LeBron has been known to do that, when he hasn't been mentioned for MVP in the past or whenever Steph Curry won it unanimously and was getting all the attention, LeBron admitted that motivated him, that he wanted to show, I'm the best player in the NBA. Don't you forget it. So I think that definitely motivates LeBron. And then now you talk about Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, two guys who also aren't finalists for the MVP award. And I think we kind of saw that coming just because they cancel each other out when it comes to votes. But, these guys will draw motivation from that. And I also think, there's motivation from the bad blood from last year. Draymond Green did not get along with these Cavs players. There was issues on the court. Obviously, he got suspended a game, so there's some bad blood there. There's LeBron and some of the words that were exchanged with Klay Thompson last year. Certainly he drew motivation from, I think it was Klay Thompson making a crybaby type comment last year. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of drama, history, and bad blood between these two teams. So you take that, couple it with the fact that none of these guys were even finalists for the MVP award. It's going to make for an interesting series and some interesting motivation. I like that the NBA announced the finalists. I did not like the fact that they have this award show that's going to be after the draft and it pushed so far back. I thought that was a mistake. But releasing the finalists now was smart because I do think it adds some extra storylines and motivation that can make this NBA Finals series fun.
And we're talking with Alex Kennedy, hoopshype.com, and the NBA Finals still ways off here. June 1st, you can listen to them all on 97.3 ESPN. They should be fun, but, hey, let's keep in mind, it was a 3-1 series last year, Alex, and then the epic collapse by Golden State, and they added Kevin Durant. Is Cleveland significantly better than they were last year, and will they need to be, in your opinion, to make this a series? Because one team at it, maybe the second best player in the game.
Yeah, I mean, Golden State is clearly better, and that's the thing, too, with this Golden State team. They can change their matchups around and make adjustments so easily when you have a guy like Durant. We're talking about LeBron James versus Kevin Durant, but, you could easily see them switching Draymond Green onto LeBron James. They can go small. There's so many different lineups and things that they can use with all the talent that they have on that team. So it's going to be difficult for Cleveland. I do think this Cavs team is better than last year. I think that Kyrie Irving has gotten better. Obviously winning a championship and getting that experience under his belt was huge. It boosted his confidence, and he's become a better player. Kevin Love, I think, has really done a better job and kind of found his role and done a really good job of adjusting in Cleveland. Tyronn Lue now has more experience as a head coach. Last year, he didn't even have a full season last year. He took over in the middle of the year for David Blatt. So Tyronn Lue now has more experience. And then some of the guys that they've added, I think, have really helped too. Kyle Korver has been really good in this postseason, stretching the floor, knocking down threes. I think some of the role players like Richard Jefferson and, Channing Frye and some of those guys have really stepped up and done a pretty good job. So, and Darren Williams too. He was another guy that they added that has, really helped them. He's been a good floor general for them when Kyrie comes off the floor in terms of limiting turnovers, knocking down catch and shoot jumpers. So Cleveland has gotten better. The Warriors have gotten much better, obviously. So that's going to be the difficult thing. Matching up against this Warriors team is not easy. But I do agree that, both teams have gotten better than last year.
All right, Alex, over at hoopshype.com. Alex is a really, really intriguing story as we get ready to get into the free agent period. And this one, we got the draft coming up. We got free agency. And one of the stories that really kind of goes under the radar here is something that you wrote about at hoopshype.com. It goes behind the scenes on how NBA players decide on who their agent's going to be.
Yeah, I've been trying to do some of these behind-the-scenes type articles lately. I did one about what it's like to be an agent and kind of talked about some of the crazy stories that agents deal with and some of their responsibilities that people don't really realize that they have to deal with. This one was about how players choose their agent. So I talked to a number of players about, what goes into that decision and what it's like to meet with a bunch of different agents and kind of be pitched. And I talked to agents about how they prepare and what they tell these guys to try to sign them. And I'm going to be doing more of these behind the scenes type stories moving forward too. I did one at the trade deadline about, how trades get done. Next week I have an article coming out about what it's like to be an NBA scout. I don't think fans realize, the travel requirements, all the work that scouts put in, the influence that they have within a front office. So I'm trying to do a lot of these behind the scenes type articles and kind of show what the NBA is like behind the scenes and peel the curtain back a little bit, because we all see the games and we see, the press conferences and even some practices now with today's, social media, but there's still so many elements of the game that we don't really know much about. So I'm trying to peel the curtain back and show some of those things. But yeah, that's the latest article, kind of talking to players about what goes into that decision, because it is really important. The difference between having an agent that's powerful and has a lot of connections around the league or an agent that is bad and doesn't really have much pull or isn't respected can really change a player's career. So I wanted to really focus on that in this article.
Yeah, it's a really good article for those of you who like that behind-the-scenes kind of stuff that Alex does a lot of, and this one on how they select an agent. And, in a lot of the sports, NBA may be the biggest one where these super agents, along with football, but really play a big factor in free agency, too. And that's one of the reasons why the Sixers went with Colangelo. They thought Hinkie didn't have the relationship with the agents and that Colangelo maybe could smooth the ill feelings of the Philadelphia franchise over.
Yeah, agent relationships are so important. It really is. And that's why, like I said, if you go with an agent that's a small-time guy or he's a brand-new agent, that can hurt a player sometimes. Whereas if you go with one of these big agencies that, has tons of connections around the NBA, they can get you more workouts. They can get you more interest in free agency. The agent decision is something that we don't really hear about a lot. Sometimes we'll see a tweet like such and such players sign with this agent, but it's nothing that's really covered extensively. But it is such a huge thing behind the scenes, and it does impact so many moves around the NBA. So that's why it intrigued me. And I think also, too, like you said, with the super agents, it's interesting because there's two different kind of pitches. The big super agents, their goal is to kind of show you look at all the contracts we have, look at all the stars we have. You know, some of these guys, some of these agents like CAA, they represent Oprah and Tom Hanks. You know, they have actors and stuff too, so they can kind of flex their muscles that way. And their pitch is, we have all these big guys, why wouldn't you want to join our team? And then the smaller agencies, they say, oh, man, look at all those guys they have. They're never going to be able to focus on you. You know, they're focused on Tom Hanks and Oprah. How are they going to be able to manage your career? Well, you're our main focus. You're our priority. So it's interesting to see how they kind of go at each other, the smaller agencies versus the bigger agencies. And that's one of the things I kind of talked about in the article, too, how they kind of pitch against each other and use each other's strengths and weaknesses against each other.
Alex Kennedy, hoopshype.com. Couple quickies here. Some reports, Sixers interested in Otto Porter. Thoughts on that? Good fit?
He would be great. He would be great with the Sixers. I don't think that Washington will let him go. He's restricted, so they can match any offer that he receives. And he's been so good for them. He really developed into a great two-way player this year. He's improved from three-point range. I think they see him as a real, key piece for them moving forward alongside John Wall and Brad Beal. So I think even if it's a huge offer, they're going to keep him. But I think he would be a really good fit with the Sixers. You know, they're obviously trying to look for 3-and-D type players to put alongside Ben Simmons. You want weapons like that around a point forward. So it makes a lot of sense. I get the interest. I think Avery Bradley is someone that could be intriguing. He could be someone that could be available in a trade. Now that Boston has the first overall pick, and they're probably going to go Markelle Fultz, and you look at all the guards they have there. Avery Bradley, Otto Porter, these guys that can knock down threes and then go play great perimeter defense are guys that are going to be very interesting to watch, because those are the kind of guys the Sixers want.
All right, Alex, we got plenty of time to preview this. We'll by the time we have a conversation next week, we should be getting hot and heavy into this series, which, by the way, they spread out pretty good, too. It starts on June 1st. Game 7 might not be till, like, midway through June, so it's not like you're going to be getting action almost every other night there. They got that finals spread out pretty far, so we'll have another full month of games, hopefully, to discuss leading into the June 22nd draft here on 97.3. Thanks, pal. Have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Thanks a lot, guys. Take